Good evening, everyone. Good evening. It is your family nutritionist, Sadeek Colquitt from the Plant Based Afrikan Center for Nutrition. Let me start out by saying I appreciate the America's Heroes group for having me on and giving me the opportunity to talk with you this evening. Want to have a brief conversation about heart disease, which leads to heart attacks and strokes, and then potentially maybe a little bit about diabetes today. Before I get started, I want to say that you can reach out to us at PBA Center for Nutrition.org. That is PBA Center for Nutrition.org. And I'm going to adjust my camera just a little bit here. All righty. And so we can get started. That's PBA Center for Nutrition.org. And again, that is the Plant Based Afrikan Center for Nutrition. So, had an interesting conversation this morning. And for those of you that aren't familiar, I am a nutritionist. I have worked in the plant based food world for over 25 years, everything from the restaurant industry to the event industry, and also being certified as a nutritionist and working the last 15 years in disease mitigation, meaning helping people reverse heart disease, diabetes, high cholesterol, and even mitigating and reducing some forms of cancer. So, that being said, want to just jump into the conversation for a little bit this evening and give you an opportunity maybe to hear something that you haven't heard, to empower you at the doctor's office, or to have general conversation when you're with your family. Our goal at the PBA Center for Nutrition is really to help people take control of their health and not leave it up to the medical slash pharmaceutical industry in order to really take you through just really the stages of what we call disease maintenance. Our objective is to put you back in control and actually help you mitigate the terms of your disease or the terms of those things that you've been diagnosed with. So, that being said, this morning I had a conversation with a young lady. She came to me, and this was a pretty typical conversation that I have on a daily basis. And the responses and the dialogue are pretty typical of what you would hear in a doctor's office for a patient who visits. So she says, just want to discuss my last visit to the doctor. I had a visit. They said they would send me my labs. And if there was anything of concern, they would give me a call. She says she saw a call from the doctor's office. She was busy. She couldn't take it. The doctor's office called again, which kind of alarmed her because she was like, okay, what are they calling about? So she didn't take that call. And then finally, she took the call, even though she was thinking maybe something really is wrong. And, I actually don't want to hear it, but I need to hear it. So the the office on the phone, it wasn't the doctor, obviously it was the doctor's office, let her know that she had elevated cholesterol. It was approaching the 230s. If you know anything, cholesterol should actually, total cholesterol should be somewhere around 150, and she's at 225. And the doctor's office continues to tell her that she is at risk, definitely for heart disease, but definitely heart attack or stroke. And for those of you that don't know, cholesterol is a fat, waxy substance that can build up in your arteries, builds up in your arteries, and is the beginning of what they call plaque. And the plaque can build, and you get these plaques in your arteries. And if the plaque breaks off and floats further down into your artery, it can block your artery, and it can prevent blood flow, which is called an occlusion, right? Or at that point, you are said to be having a heart attack. So they explained this to her, and she said, obviously, I don't want this to happen. So they also explained to her that if she wasn't able to get her cholesterol under control, that the next option would be a cholesterol lowering drug, or pharmaceutical. And so she was looking for a little advice. So I'm going to explain to you what I explained to her about heart disease in America. So, first of all, heart disease is the number one killer of Americans, of all ages and races. There are approximately 800,000 people a year who die from some form of heart disease. They have a stroke, they have a heart attack, they have an aneurysm. And many of you have seen this in relatives, family, friends. It may have even happened in your Facebook timeline over the last week. Somebody that either had a heart attack, passed from a heart attack, and it is something that can really cause trauma in a family. So that being said, I explained to her that I was going to share with her some very basic principles that could put her in control when she goes back to the doctor. And I'm going to explain those principles to you. So the first discussion I had with her was about cholesterol. And I asked her a question. I said, do you know or are you aware that your body produces all of the cholesterol you will ever need for your entire life? Meaning that we come here, our livers, our body produces all of the cholesterol we will ever need, meaning you are perfectly calibrated with your cholesterol because your body makes it. So, how do we get high or excess cholesterol? The other way is we'd have to eat it. You'd have to eat something that has cholesterol in it. And since you're already perfectly calibrated, the extra cholesterol would be on top, which would raise your cholesterol levels. So it's simple addition. You already have cholesterol, you'd have to eat something that would add to your cholesterol levels. That excess cholesterol, because your body is not able to work with it, right, would begin to build up in areas where you don't want it to build up, like your arteries and other places in the body. So I explained this to her. And then I explained to her that the only place you can get extra cholesterol is from another animal like yourself whose body makes cholesterol, and you'd have to digest that. And the cholesterol from that other animal, meaning a chicken, a fish, a cow, could go on down the list there. The egg, those things that contain the excess cholesterol would begin to build up in your system on top of the cholesterol that you already produce. That cholesterol is building inside of your arteries, and it is causing your arteries to harden, to stiffen, and then it is also building up these plaques along the walls of your arteries, causing reduced function. Your arteries can no longer expand and contract. They no longer have the elasticity that they are supposed to, so they become very rigid, very hard. Your blood pressure increases and your cholesterol levels increase. So, after having that discussion, explaining that one, she already made cholesterol, all the cholesterol she would ever need. Two, the only way to add to that is to eat another animal that makes cholesterol. And three, you're actually in control of how much cholesterol you add to your diet. So the doctor said to her to go on a low fat diet. She had absolutely no idea what that meant. And neither do most people, because it is some of the most ambiguous health advice you can ever get. So here's what I told her. If she took 30 to 60 days, 60 was the recommendation, and she cut out as close as possible as she could get to zero animal products for 60 days, she could drop her cholesterol 20 to 40 points because it was simple math. She was going to take the excess cholesterol out of her diet, increase the amount of fruits and vegetables that she eats. As a matter of fact, that's all she'd be eating are plant-based foods. Because guess what? Contains zero cholesterol. Zero. Zero cholesterol. That's right. Plants or plant-based foods. Strawberries, green beans, kale greens, collard greens, mustard greens, turnip greens, black-eyed peas. Um, you could the list goes on and on and on, right? Strawberries, bananas, mangoes, they contain zero cholesterol. So she could eat as many plant-based foods as she chose for these 60 days, and she would drop her cholesterol. She would definitely come below 200 and move towards normal without a drug and without the ambiguous advice of just having a low-fat diet. So the outcome, she said, this may be difficult, but I'm willing to try. And I said, you can do anything for 2 months. I asked her age, and then I multiplied it by 12. And I told her, you've been on this planet close to 400 months. You can do anything for 2 to save potentially your life, to give your body the opportunity to heal itself, that for 2 months out of the 400 months you have been on the planet, and I've been on the planet way longer than 400 months. I'll be 54 coming up this December. So, 50 times 12. So I've been here over 600 months. And I'm telling you that it's worth it to take a couple of months out and know for a fact that just simply by choosing to reduce the amount of animals you eat, you can control your own cholesterol. You literally have the power inside of your fork. You don't need a drug. You don't need ambiguous advice from the doctor. Now, this does not mean you don't go to the doctor. I'm not telling you to avoid the doctor. I am empowering you to go share with your doctor and to have an understanding of what's happening in your own body. I want you to be clear. I am sharing with you the opportunity you have to be in control of your own health. There's about 70% of the country, that's 70% of 325 million people that are on unnecessary pharmaceutical drugs. And that's huge because we are not given the information that gives us access to the control that we have to have. We should be partners with our doctors, right? Instead of being drugged through the medical pharmaceutical loop. Cholesterol is simply a matter of math. Okay? So, meaning that you can also literally reduce 90% or more your chances of heart attack, stroke, and also dementia. And when and if I am asked to come back, I want to talk about dementia and Alzheimer's, which are food diseases, because I want to get to diabetes before I go. I've only got about 10 minutes left, but I want to be clear with you that this idea or notion that you lose your memory because you get older is a falsehood. So our family members, and it is very debilitating and traumatizing. My first memory of dementia was a cousin who lived in Tennessee, and I couldn't have been any more than 7 or 8 years old, and um, or maybe 9 or 10. I was a little older, but my memory started before she began to lose her senses to dementia. And it was very sad for me as a young boy in the late 70s to see my cousin go through this. And then my family members have to really adjust, right? This was my first time being confronted um, with dementia. And now, as a learned nutritionist and somebody that's been in the health industry for more than 2 decades, and you can actually verify this through research. Everything I'm telling you, you can go research. Matter of fact, I recommend it because it empowers you and me so that you know what I'm telling you is based in science and not my opinion. However, dementia and Alzheimer's are food diseases. As a matter of fact, uh, it's really being called type 3 diabetes in some circles. And we'll go through that again on another show because I want to get to diabetes because diabetes is ravaging our community. Okay. But just remember this: Alzheimer's and dementia are food diseases. They are not age diseases. They are food diseases that occur over time, which all food diseases do. All food diseases do. If you are a teenager raised in America on any parts or any subset of the standard American diet between the ages of 16 and 18, you have the beginnings or what they call the floor of heart disease. And by the time you're in your 20s and your 30s, that begins to enter the stages where people come to me and they say their cholesterol's high, their blood pressure's high, and they're at risk for a heart attack, a stroke, or an aneurysm, or some other type or derivative of heart disease. Okay, last 6 or 7 minutes. Diabetes. Want to say this? This was a conversation that I actually had Monday. And so these are live conversations I want to share with you to empower you. So here's where I want to start. Diabetes is not caused by sugar. I wanted to pause there and I'm going to say it again. Diabetes is not caused by sugar. This is another biological scientific inaccuracy, but it is supported through all types of even family myth, right? It's supported through the doctor. It's supported through these commercials that you see in particular on TV where they talk about managing your sugar. But if diabetes is not caused by sugar and we never discuss the cause, then again, you end up in the medical pharmaceutical loop because you don't know what causes diabetes. So here is the deal: sugar or high blood sugar is the outcome, it is the effect of the insulin resistant stage. It is not the cause of it. And when I say diabetes, I'm talking about type 2. Type 1 is another conversation for another day. Okay. But when we talk about diabetes, the majority of cases are all type 2. And type 2 diabetes is caused by oils and fats in your cells, and in particular, animal fats and all types of oil, because oil is not a natural food. Oil is what you get when you strip a natural food of all of its vitamins, its minerals, when you strip it of its fiber, its water, and all you have left is the fat. That's oil. It's when you take everything you need out of the avocado and you leave just the fat. It's called avocado oil. When you strip everything out of the corn, the fiber, the vitamins, the minerals, the water, when you strip all of these things out of it and you're left with just the fat, it's called oil. And so these oils and these fats, the fat from the chicken, the fat from the cow, the fat from the fish, right? Super fatty fishes, the catfish, the salmon, right? The tilapia. When you take these fats that are already in the animal tissues, right? A lot of these saturated fats, then you cook them in oil, right? So not only do you have a catfish, but now you have a catfish fry on Fridays after church. I mean, we could go on and on and on. When they enter the system, this is your cell, a healthy cell, right? It's clear, the membranes are clear. And this cell, the normal functioning is insulin, okay, which is this right here. Looks like my fingers is the insulin. And the insulin is a carrier. And when you eat, your body breaks what you eat into little sugars and they line up on the insulin like on a school bus. And the insulin approaches the cell, communicates with the cell. All right. And once the insulin communicates with the cell says, I'm hungry. And the insulin it triggers something, and the insulin lets the sugar, all right, off of the bus into the cell. The cell eats and everything works perfectly. When you, through the fried chicken, the catfish, the oils, the saturated fats, when you clog up this cell with fat, the insulin that has the sugar approaches the cell. It can no longer communicate with the cell because the cell is gummed up, similar to how your lock can get gummed up in the winter if water gets in the lock and it freezes, right? And ice gets in, your key can't go into the lock. So the insulin cannot communicate with the cell, but it's still carrying the sugar, okay? Because it cannot communicate with the cell, the sugar has to be released into the blood system. And once the excess sugar is released into your blood system or your bloodstream, you are said to have high blood sugar. But the sugar is not the cause. The oil in your cells are the cause. So Sadeek, I'm type 2 diabetic. My mom is type 2 diabetic. My coworker is type 2 diabetic. How do we come off of metformin? How do we stop having to use Jardiance? How do we stop having to inject ourselves? Well, we have to clean out the cell. So what do? We already know how we get excess fats and cholesterols. We talked about that in the first part. Got about 2 minutes left. We clean out the cells, right? We eat more fiber, more plant foods. We reduce our animal food intake. And I tell everybody, if you can get it down to 0, for as long as you can give it a shot, you can clean these cells out. The insulin can do its job and the sugar can go where it needs to go, come out of the bloodstream. You can reduce your own insulin resistance. I have done it, we have done it, and we've had success at it. It is a different strategy, but understanding the cause, it's called lipid toxicity. It's a disease of fat, not sugar. So I've only got about 60 seconds. You can reach us at pbacenterfornutrition.org. One word, pbacenterfornutrition.org. Okay, Sadeek Colquitt. I'm your nutritionist. Thank you for letting me into your home, your car, wherever you are for this evening. On behalf of the Plant Based Afrikan Center for Nutrition, we love and appreciate each and every one of you. You can also email us, okay? plantbasedafrican@gmail.com. Thank you very much.